Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Hello and welcome back, my students, to lesson number 9. In this lesson, we'll talk about the distribution of disease. Let's do the first practice. Practice number A. Write 3 things you remember about malaria from lesson number 8 in your notebook. Work in pairs and compare your answers. Here we can write a lot of things like the definition of malaria, for example. Malaria is an infectious disease of birds, monkeys, and humans. We can write something related to the number of affected people. Each year about 300 to 500 million people are affected with malaria. We can talk about the forms of it. Malaria has 4 forms and so on. You can do this practice yourselves, my students. Now let's do something else. Practice number B. You will read an extract from a lecture given by Dr. Mona Sultan about the distribution of malaria throughout the world. Before you read, underline the option that you think is correct in each of the following sentences. Number 1. Malaria exists in very few countries or is very widespread. So, as you see, my students, here you have to underline the option that you think is correct. Number 2. Annually means every year. Annually, there are around a million or around 500 million cases of malaria. Number 3. About 500,000 or nearly 3 million people die of malaria every year. Number 4. The continent that has the highest number of malaria is Asia or Africa. And number 5. Drugs that fight malaria are becoming more or less effective. Here, according to your opinion, according to your thoughts, you can underline the best or the correct choice. Number C. Read the extract. Check your ideas in exercise number B. Here we can check our ideas in the previous exercise. I'd like to talk now about the distribution of malaria throughout the world. The disease is very widespread throughout almost every continent. In fact, the situation is very serious, and I'm afraid to say getting worse. Most tropical and subtropical countries are affected, and there are between 300 million and 500 million cases of malaria annually. The death rate is between 1.5 and 2.7 million people each year. That's a very large number, and about 100 countries are affected by malaria. Most of these countries are in the tropical or subtropical areas of the world. In fact, the continent with the highest number of cases of malaria is Africa. Approximately 90% of malaria cases occur in Africa. The situation throughout the world is being made worse by 2 main facts. Firstly, some mosquitoes are becoming resistant to insecticides, and secondly, Plasmodium falciparum, that's the organism which causes the most deaths, is also becoming resistant to drugs. So, we can come back to the previous exercise number B. Number 1. Malaria exists in very few countries or is very widespread. No, malaria is very widespread. Annually, there are around a million or around 500 million cases, of malaria. Number 3. About 500,000 or nearly 3 million people die. No, nearly 3 million people die of malaria every year. The continent that has the highest number of malaria cases is Africa, yeah. And drugs that fight malaria are becoming less effective. Now, after doing this, let's do practice number D. Read the website extract about the disease leprosy. Find answers to these questions. Number 1. What kind of disease is leprosy? What other disease is it related to? What other name does it have? And when was it discovered? Let's read the website. Leprosy, or Hansen's disease, chronic infectious disease of human beings that primarily affects the skin, mucous membranes, and nerves. The disease is caused by a rod-shaped bacillus, Mycobacterium leprae, which is similar to the bacillus that causes tuberculosis. The leprosy bacillus was identified in 1874 by the Norwegian physician Gerhard Heinrich Armour Hansen. Let's do the questions. Number 1. What kind of disease is leprosy? Leprosy is an infection disease that affects the skin, mucous membranes, and nerves. What other disease is related to? Tuberculosis. 3. What other name does it have? Hansen's disease. And when was it discovered? It was discovered in 1874. Let's go to our workbook. Number 8. Read the second part of Dr. Muna Sultan's lecture. Then shade in the areas affected by malaria on the map below. The map shows us that most of Africa below the Sahara Desert is affected by malaria. The exception is South Africa and parts of Namibia in the southwest, which are free of the disease. The North African countries are also generally free of malaria. Moving east, there is an area of malaria around the coasts of the Arabian Peninsula, along the Red Sea coast, and through Yemen and Oman. Parts of Iraq and the south of Iran are also affected. Moving further into Asia, we can see that most of India and Pakistan are affected. Also, the countries of Southeast Asia, Burma, Malaysia, Thailand, and the islands of Indonesia and Borneo have malaria. Australia, however, down here in the far southeast, is not affected. Moving to the western hemisphere, we can see that North America isn't affected. It has no malaria regions. But parts of Central America are affected. Also, the northern countries in South America are affected by malaria. In particular, there are the area of Amazon countries in the far south of South America, such as Argentina and Chile, don't have malaria also. So here we can know where are the regions of malaria and where are the regions which are free of malaria. Now, number B, look at the map and the figures in the table below. They show the geographical distribution of leprosy around the world according to the World Health Organization. Write a short report describing the situation. Here we have Africa, 82.522. America, North and South, 119. Southeast Asia, 591. East Mediterranean, 11. Western Pacific, 23. Europe, 543, and the total is 828 and 803. Here we have the model report. Geographical distribution of leprosy. The distribution of leprosy around the world is shown in the table and the map. The figures are for 1998 and come from the World Health Organization. There were a total of approximately 830,000 cases of leprosy throughout the world in 1998. Nearly 3/4 of all cases, just under 600,000, occurred in Southeast Asia. The region with the second largest number of cases was North and South America. Here there were approximately 120,000 cases. Africa had the third largest total, just over 80,000 cases. The numbers of cases in other regions were much smaller. The Western Pacific region had 23,400 cases, and the Eastern Mediterranean had just under 12,000 cases. There were only a few hundred cases in Europe. It can be seen that Southeast Asia, America, and Africa account for the great majority of cases of leprosy. By doing this exercise, we can end our lesson, my students. So study it hard and goodbye.